Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the OSINT Curious live stream. I'm Micah Hoffman. And for those of you that don't know, Stephen Harris, if you came here to see him, as many of you probably have, he is under the weather today and he won't be appearing with us. But he's authorized me to go ahead and show off all the amazing Linux and Windows Python things that we were going to show. So why don't you get all set up, get your virtual machines running if you want to get them running, and we'll be back shortly to get this thing started. There you go. And we're back, people. Hi, my name is Michael Hoffman. As I mentioned, I'm the president of OSINT Curious, and I'm thrilled to be here to help you learn how to set up those command line tools that are very, very challenging sometimes in our OSINT work. Before we get there, let me just shout out and say welcome to everybody. We have a huge number of people here from LinkedIn, Twitch, and from YouTube. Welcome, everybody. I see some old friends like Lucas and Death Knight and some new ones as well. For those of you that are just joining us for the very first time, welcome to one of our live streams. Below me on the streaming across your screen right now is our OSINT Curious social media handle, the link to our website, the link to our Patreon patron page. Thank you to those that are actually supporting our project, and also a link to the OSINT Curious Discord. I bring up that last link as a very important piece of your OSINT journey. A lot of people are doing open source intelligence by themselves. Maybe they are the only one in their group or their company, or just by themselves in their home. And they're the only person that does open source intelligence, and so that can be very isolating. My strong suggestion, as you've heard me say many, many times before, is join a community of people that think like we do and are there to support you. The OSINT Curious Discord is a free chat group like Slack that can help you boost your career and help you learn OSINT. All right. I'm looking here. So for those, I'm going to try to get on here. Hang on one second. Let me get on the LinkedIn, because if I don't get on the LinkedIn, then I can't send you all the links. All right, let me see. Micah, active president. All right, good, cool. So let's do some level setting. Let me set the tone for what we're going to be doing, what I'm going to be doing today. Sorry if I speak in third person. It's very, I'm very used to doing that. So what am I going to do today? I've been watching people in the OSINT Curious Discord and in many other places, like on Reddit's subreddit /r/OSINT. And I've been watching people say, oh, I can't get this Python OSINT tool to work, or this one's airing out, or I've installed Python, but I don't know what to do next. In the next hour, I'm going to be showing you how to do certain things in Linux, if you have a Linux virtual machine or a Linux system, and also in Windows 11, if you choose to use Windows. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to identify an OSINT tool that you might want to download, then how to get it down to your system in 2 different ways, then how to install it, and how to run it. Now, we're not going to go into how do I run this tool or that tool. We just don't have time for that. And that's really not what this is about. This is about how do we get, download, install, and run those tools. With that, let's go ahead and talk about what this is not. Again, I can't do troubleshooting for every single person on this live stream. We have a huge number of people here that I love to see, but I can't handle everybody's specific challenges right now. My goal is to teach you how to do this on Linux and Windows, and then if we have time at the end, if you have questions, I'm happy to help out. This is going to be recorded. Or this is being recorded. So if you are somebody that has to step away, or maybe you're watching it after the event happened, it should be on our YouTube. All right. So let's get into this. Let me just check my notes and make sure I got what I need to. All right. Also, the things I'm going to show you, while they should work on 93.75% of all computers and virtual machines out there, there is a small chance that your computer, your virtual machine, is going to be different than the ones I use. In those cases, you're going to need to do some extra learning about Python and possibly about installing tools. And there are places to do that. So we are going to, let's see, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to be using two virtual machines. The first one is a custom built Ubuntu Ubuntu 22.04 version operating system. And the second one is a Windows 11 virtual machine. I'm also using the current version of Python version 3.x. Now, this is something that we are not going to really cover here, but there are actually several current versions of Python. And depending upon what system you're using and how you install Python, you might have Python version 3.6, 3.7, 3.8, 9, or even 3.10, or even maybe a more recent version. As long as you have the 3.0 branch, you should be absolutely fine. All right. Let's see. So the link to the YouTube channel, sure, it is actually, if you go to our YouTube, you go to youtube.com/the OSINT Curious Project. All right. So let's get into this now. We're going to be using this as my Linux system. Let me make sure my Windows system is up. Good. All right. So here's my Linux system. This is a virtual machine that I created. It's using the operating system Xubuntu. And what I'm going to do is launch a terminal window because we're dealing with command line tools. Now, this terminal window is something that we have some 10-minute tips that you can use for free. And if you look at this location that I'm showing on the screen, iam.osintcurio.us/resources, you can go to that page and there's a Linux section. So if you're not sure how to get around in Linux, what to do in Linux, that resource is going to be really helpful because I have about 5 other videos that I've made how to use Linux for OSINT, and they're out there for free on the YouTubes. So what we're going to do is we're going to download a tool called DNSRecon. And I thought we'd use DNSRecon because it's actually quite simple to use and a very standard process for installing. Like I said, I'm going to show you 2 ways to install this. Let's go to DNSRecon. I'll paste this into the chat. Oh, thanks, John, for putting that link to our project in there. There we go. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Hang on. You can click on that, but that's the OSINT Curious thing. Hang on, let me see if I can do this. There we go. DNSRecon and DNSRecon. So we're going to be using DNSRecon. For those of you that don't know, this is a terrific free Python tool by Carlos Perez, the dark operator. And what it does is it interrogates the domain name system to grab information about a domain that you might be looking up. So let's say that you found OSINT Curious and you don't know anything about how it's being used or who owns it and things. You can use DNSRecon and find out that information. So what I'm going to do is first thing that we usually do is visit the page for the project. This is dark operator is the user here. You see Carlos Perez there, and DNSRecon is the repository. Now I'm specifically showing you tools from GitHub because mainly those are the simple ones that we're going to probably be using. The hard part for many people when they get to a GitHub page is that this all stuff in here, it looks like just stuff that it doesn't matter to them. And it's like, well, how do I get the tool? The secret, people, is scroll down the page. Once you get here, you start looking at the contents of the readme.md file, which is a standard file in these repositories. Here we see DNSRecon. Here's a little bit about it, and it says it requires Python version 3.6 or greater. Okay, cool. So these are all the files that we're going to pull down to our system, and we're going to do it via 2 ways. I'm going to show you the hard way first, then I'm going to show you the easy way. The hard way is using a tool called Git. And it's not really hard, it's just several steps. So let's go ahead and take this URL. I'm going to just copy it, and we're going to go to our terminal. Now on my file system, I have a directory called tools. So I'm going to change directory to tools so that I can put all of my tools in one place. I like that. It helps me organize things and I know exactly where to go to get them. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell my system here to go out to GitHub, grab all of those files that we just saw up here, all of these files and directories. I'm going to tell Git to grab that from GitHub. And the way we do that is to clone it. Git clone, and then we're going to paste in that URL. Now my URL here is highlighted because of how I pasted it in. But the command is essentially git clone and then that URL. Now if I hit this and everything works fine, what I should see is cloning into DNSRecon, and now I have a directory with DNSRecon. And I can change directory into there. That's using the cd command. Ooh. And I can do an ls to look what's in there. And look, you see all these files right here, subdomains, top 1 mil, setup.py. Those are the same ones that are here on the site. So I've now cloned that repository, taken it from the internet, and brought it down to my system. If you got an error when you did this and you typed in git clone and then the URL and it says command not found, it may ask you to install the tool Git. And it might say use sudo apt install Git. Follow those directions, install the Git command, and then try this command again. Okay? Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely going to be available later on. I know this is technical, and this is actually recorded, and it's going to be on our YouTube. So we've done the Git. We have done the Git clone. We have the content on our system, but you know what? If I try to run this DNSRecon py file, this Python file, it's not going to run. And the reason is that when people make software and they put it on the internet in like Python tools and other things, they usually use dependencies. They have other libraries, other software that's out there that they need to have installed on your system to run their tool. So the next part that we're going to do is tell our system to grab all of the requirements needed to run this tool. And to do that, we're going to type in pip install -r requirements.txt. I don't know if any of you saw this. There's this requirements.txt file. Let's take a look at it over here. See this requirements.txt file? This has 5 other libraries that DNSRecon relies on in order to run. So we have to tell our system install that, and then we're going to be able to run DNSRecon. So the command to do that is pip install -r requirements.txt. And that requirements.txt is the name of the file that we're going to be installing things from. All right. And when I hit this, it should start downloading and installing all of the requirements for that application. And you can see that here it downloaded Pi, it downloaded ATTRS, downloaded packaging and installed it. And it says it successfully installed all of these things. Yes. Now, what happens if this didn't happen on your system and you have errors and red things all over your screen? Read those errors. Read what they say, and you might find out that it says, oh, you have an incompatible version of something, or you don't have access to a certain piece of software. And you may need to install some other applications in order to get these dependencies to be installed to run DNSRecon. It gets complicated, right? Like I said, this is the hard way to do it. And right now, after I've done that, I should be able to run the DNSRecon program. Now, the next question is for some of you, where's the program? How do I use it? And sometimes on the web pages of the projects, it'll tell you how to do that. In this case, if I scroll down, I don't see how to use this tool. Now there are other parts of the website. Let's just check and see. Sometimes this wiki here is a place where there's information like, oh, hey, here's installation instructions. Here's the home and then installation instructions. Ah, look at this. It tells us how to do some installations if we are having problems. Cool. Here's that git clone. Okay, and git pull. Nice. This has a lot of different options. For us, we've already installed it, so let's get to running it. So in our system on Linux, you can see that this file right here, DNSRecon.py, is green and is green and is different. On my system, this indicates that this file is executable. We need scripts to be executable in order to run them, unless we use the interpreter that made them. So what does this mean? Well, you can see right here, we have DNSRecon.py. That's the file I want to run. Two ways to run it. I can type in Python DNSRecon.py. And if I hit enter, it says, oh no, Python's not found. Well, these error messages are sometimes pretty helpful. They're meant to get you to your next step. So let's just hit the up arrow and see if we can enter in Python 3, because it says, hey, maybe the command in Python 3 is there. Ah, when I type in Python 3, then it can run the DNSRecon.py server. Why is that? Well, when I installed Python on this system, it didn't actually map to the word Python. It mapped to Python 3. So I have to be very specific when I'm using that program. On your system, you might have gotten that error, or you might be able to just use the term Python, as you'll see when we get to Windows. So what is all of this? Well, this is all how we run the tool. And if we hit the up arrow again and type --help, what we get is the same thing, but we get more information about how to run the tool. And what this also tells me is that we are running DNSRecon Python program. We have just executed it, and it's asking us what of these switches and flags do we want to use. Excellent. This is very cool. Okay, so let me just take a look at what you've been posting here. Sorry, any reason for choosing Ubuntu? The reason for choosing Ubuntu is it's free, easy, and it's what I like using. This is actually Xubuntu, Xubuntu, which is a lighter weight version of Ubuntu. If you're using Mint or Gentoo or some other Debian flavor, that's absolutely fine. If you're using the Tracelab virtual machine or something that you've built using somebody else's tools, that's fine too. These concepts should work out just fine. All right. Cool. So I've just run DNSRecon, and just to show you that it works, I'm just going to hit the up arrow. Instead of help, I'm going to type in a domain of OSINT Curious.us. This is how we actually run DNSRecon. And you can see it's actually doing the work of enumerating the DNS servers, finding out how OSINT Curious, the domain, is used in DNS. So it works. That's great. Now, I also mentioned another way to execute this information here. All right. So this DNSRecon, let's see. So here I'm seeing that this is executable. You see this little star on the end that says it's executable. We can also skip typing in Python 3 DNSRecon, and we can just type in dot saying that in the current directory / DNSRecon.py. This says that in the current directory, there's an executable file, that green file with the star after it. There's an executable file that I want to run. And if I hit this, I should get the help menu. How is this different than running it with the Python 3? It's just two ways to do the exact same thing. Why I'm telling you this is that sometimes when we get the tool and we've downloaded it, you might not see something that has that star there or is green. In fact, if I change the permissions of this, if I change the permissions of that DNSRecon.py file to not be executable anymore, you see it's not green anymore, and it doesn't have that star. This is the way that some of the Python tools that you're going to download may appear on your system. If that's the case, you can type in that Python 3 DNSRecon.py. This says I want Python to run that Python file. And when I hit this, it should execute. If I tried to do that /recon, it's going to say you can't do it because there's no executable file. Now, some of you are probably thinking, wait a second, that I don't get it. What did you do? What was the magic that you did to do stuff? All I did was I changed the file permissions. In Linux, we can set a file as executable or not executable. And sometimes when you download things, the maintainer of the packages has made something executable. You'll do your long listing here, like I've typed in LL, and you'll see that it is green and has a star. Yeah. In that case, you can just say in the current directory /DNSRecon.py. If you don't see that, then just say I want to use Python 3 or Python to execute this file. Cool? All right. So, let's go ahead and see. So this is one way to do it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this and show you another way to do this. So I'm going to go up a directory, rm-rf DNSRecon. I'm going to delete that directory. And if you look, DNSRecon is no longer on my system. If I type in DNSRecon, it says I don't know about this. But if you look, it says sudo apt install DNSRecon. So in this case, the DNSRecon application can be found within the operating system's repository of software. So if I wanted Xubuntu to reach into its repository of DNSRecon and download and install it, I could type in sudo apt install DNSRecon. That's a second way to do it. The third way to do it is using pip again. We used pip to install the requirements file. Now let's use pip to actually install the whole shebang. Here, if I type in pip install DNSRecon, what this is going to tell the Python package manager, pip, to do is look in its packages and find DNSRecon, grab it, install all those dependencies automatically, and then and make it so that that application works. Now we do have to take a look here. It says requirement already satisfied, building stored. All right. So now the question is, where is DNSRecon? Because if I look in my tools, there's still no directory there for DNSRecon. Where did it go? And the answer is it got put into a place where you can just type in DNSRecon.py. Actually, DNSRecon. And I can just run the program like that. DNSRecon --help. Because what the pip program does is it installs the program in a place where it is in what's called your path. The path is that place where your system looks to find if there are executable files in those locations. So DNSRecon --help. We don't have to specify Python 3 or Python. We don't have to do the /. In fact, in this case, you can't do those because there is nothing in the current directory at all. So if I did a /DNSRecon.py, like I did before, and hoping that it's going to work, it's going to say that there's no file. The reason is that DNSRecon is now installed in home OSINT.local/bin DNSRecon. Now, this is another thing that we need to talk about. And it gets complicated. I get that this gets complicated, all right? It's taken me many, many years to learn all these things, and I'm throwing them at you here in 30 minutes. This is called your path. If we echo path, these are the directories: home osint.local/bin, user local sbin, user local bin. These are the places that my system is going to look to find executable files. So when I type in something like ls or DNSRecon, it's going to look in all of those places and see if it finds that tool there. If it does, it'll run it. The reason why I bring this up is that my user inside of my virtual machine is called OSINT. This is the OSINT user. So if you're at your command prompt, you might have a user of Trace Labs or a user of Bob or whatever your name is, or Ubuntu. You might see that. In which case, this directory here would be home / whatever your user name is. So home ubuntu.local/bin. And what you might find is that sometimes those paths are not in your, or that path to that executable is not in your overall path. So sometimes one of the problems that we have is not downloading, not installing it, but it did all those things. Where is it on my system? And that's where we need to sometimes read what comes with the installation and what happens when we do the installation. All right, so that's Linux. Linux, we used git and git clone. Then we did the pip install -r requirements. Then we ran the program using Python 3 and the DNSRecon.py tool. We also saw that we could use the sudo command along with apt. And apt is only a tool that works on certain operating systems, but your operating system may suggest, hey, you might want to use the software installation tool to install DNSRecon if it knows about it. The third way was to do the pip install and then the name of the tool. Now, the question is, well, how do I know which one of those to use? The answer is you don't necessarily. In this case, what I would do is I would look at the project and go, how do they suggest I install this? And we saw there was the wiki and installation instructions, and some of that's here. This is also one of those reasons why I suggest that you use a Discord like the OSINT Curious Discord and have a bunch of people that know this stuff, because they can really help you out. All right, cool. All right, cool. So that's one way of doing it. Now, I know that some of you are using Python on Windows, so let's see if we can go over there. Now, I'm using a Windows 11 system, and I'm using Python version 10, and I've installed the Git. Oh, I haven't installed the Git application. All right, let's install Git. So this is one of the other problems. In Windows, sometimes you can do certain things and it's no problem, and sometimes you need to install some of that software that may already be installed on Linux systems. But that's okay. Do you have to do this? Nope. But to show you, I'm just going to go ahead and hit next on all these things. Be like a normal user, not even read what those things say. This is that Git tool that I started out with on Linux. I just typed in Git and then the clone and then the repository URL. Windows doesn't come with Git. We can install it from the internet. We also can use those other methods of installing the application. So, let's go ahead and launch a new window. Nah, I got to do this. All right, we're going to close that. Close them all. Let's do that. And let's see if Git's there now. There we go. So I just had to open and close my window, or close, then reopen my window. So now I have Git on my system. I can do the exact same thing I did before. I'm going to change directory to my tools directory. Now in Windows, we have different commands than Linux. So here I'm going to type in dir for my directory. Now, some of you are thinking, well, why aren't you using the Windows subsystem for Linux, Micah? The answer is, well, that's kind of the same as what we just did in the Linux system, just over on Windows systems. Windows systems nowadays, if you install the Windows subsystem for Linux, you can run Linux inside of your Windows. It doesn't have access to all of the operating system functions like it would on a real Linux system, but it's many times good enough. So hang on one second. I've got a question here. Are we doing web server OSINT enumeration, or is it deep dive OSINT? No, we're not doing any of that. We're just installing and configuring Linux tools, or command line tools and Python tools. Just showing how to install that. All right, so here I'm in my tools directory. Let's go back to Carlos Perez's DNSRecon directory. Let's just type in git clone, and then we're going to paste in the URL to the repository. Just like in Linux, it's grabbing that and coming back. Now I can change directory to the DNSRecon directory, type in dir, and you see we still have things like that requirements file, just like what we saw on Linux. And in fact, from here, the commands are the same. If you want to install those requirements, pip install -r requirements. Now, I already have Python installed on my system, and pip is already there, so it's going ahead and doing this work for me. There we go. Oh, and it told me at the end, listen, a new release of pip is available. Do this to upgrade it. I could do that if I wanted, but we're really interested in DNSRecon. So let's go ahead and see. So we did the pip install requirements. Let's do the directory listing here. Now let's try to run the DNSRecon.py file and see what happens. We can do dot. Now on Windows, the slashes are the other way around. So instead of being a /, it's a \. So /DNSRecon.py. Let's see what happens. Hey, it executed. That's because Carlos Perez and those people have made that file executable. We also should be able to do a Python DNSRecon.py. There we go. So we can do the exact same thing that we did on Linux. We did the git clone. We did the pip install -r requirements.txt, and now we can execute it. There are some things that are different between the two, right? And that's something that you need to learn as an investigator. If you're doing things on Windows systems, you're going to need to change the slashes to \/ instead of /. Linux loves /. Windows \/. So that's the wonderful thing also about Python and other tools like it, is that they are cross-platform compatible. So if you are using the tool on Windows, it's very similar to if you're using it on Linux. All right. So that's one way to install it. Like I said, we've got that cd ... Oh, that way I did a /, but that's okay. We went up one directory. I can also do the pip install DNSRecon. That way should work as well. There we go. It tells me again I need to upgrade my pip. But now, just like I did on Linux, since I used the pip install method, I should be able to type in DNSRecon, and it comes up. All right, same thing we did on Linux. We can do that in Windows in a command prompt as long as you have those common tools. To answer your question, Michelle, yep, absolutely. This is all being recorded. It'll be available on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/the OSINT Curious Project. Cool, right? All right, so we've installed the exact same thing on two systems using basically the same type of commands. Let me show you a different one because this is typical, but it's not the only way that we do stuff. Let's unlock this system. Let's go to another tool. And this is one of those tools for those of you that actually filled out the survey that I sent out. We had a lot of requests for people that people wanted Holehe installed and configured. Let's do it. Now, here we're on their GitHub page. On their GitHub page, you can see we've got some files here. And remember what I told you, just scroll down. Here's what the tool is. Here's a summary, pretty important. Runs on Python 3. That's good because we've got Python 3 installed. And then see here the installation. This project has told you exactly how to install it. Hey, this Pip3 install Holehe, didn't we just see that with pip install DNSRecon? Yeah, it turns out we can install pip the same way that we installed DNSRecon. Now, why does it specify Pip3 instead of just pip like we did? Well, on some platforms, on some operating systems, when you install Python, like we saw on my Linux system here, I had to specify Python 3 instead of just Python because Python 2 is out there still and they want to make sure that you're using the right version. In this case, you may use pip3 install Holehe, or you might be able to remove that 3 and just do pip install Holehe. All right, cool. So let's give it a try. Let's try the easy way. And then if you look here, it shows you a different way to install it using the git clone. We still are doing the git clone. We still are changing directory to go into Holehe. But then here, instead of doing the pip install -r requirements.txt, it tells you run Python 3, setup py, install. Let's try that version first. This way is too easy, right? So let's go ahead and copy this. Insert Micah's warning about copying tools and copying commands that you don't know. You should never just copy commands without understanding what they do. Yada, 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 protect yourself. All right. So here I am going to paste that command, git clone, and then the URL to Holehe. The next thing it says is cd into Holehe. All right, cd to Holehe. Now in Holehe, I've got all of those same files here. There's that setup.py, and here it says run Python 3 setup.py install. So let's do that and see what happens. Oh no, what happened? Look at this. We've got error no, permission denied, error, can't create or remove files. When this happens, and it will happen, take a breath and then start reading what's happening. 9 times out of 10, if it's a permission denied error, that usually means that we might need to be root instead of a normal non-administrative user. So right now I'm using the system as the user OSINT, which is not an administrator or elevated privilege user. Here it's saying, oh, I can't write to user lib Python 3 dist packages setup tools, blah, blah, blah. You can see, oh, hang on. Error can't create or remove directory, permission denied in user local lib Python 3, blah, blah, blah. Let's try just rerunning that command. I'm going to hit the up arrow, go to the beginning and type in the word sudo. Now for many of you, sudo is a weird command. All it is your request to run that command as an admin. And yes, you need to know the admin password or your password. My password here, I entered it. Now it's working. All right. So just in your head, if it's a permission denied error, chances are good you need to run it as, use the sudo command to run it as root. All right, so it says that we installed everything. Where's the tool? Well, let's just try running Holehe --help. There it is. The tool's executed. So sometimes when you grab the program from Git and you install it, it's going to put a file into that directory like what we saw with DNSRecon. And there we were executing the file from inside of that GitHub repository that was cloned to our system. Sometimes when you run a tool like this and it does the setup, it will take that file and put it into a place where you can just interact with it like you would if you had done the pip install. So here, if I want to run Holehe, for those of you that don't know, Holehe is a tool that will check emails against many different social media platforms. Here I run Holehe, john@example.com, and it's checking all these different platforms. And then this is one of those tools that gets run automatically when you use the ipeos.com site, and it says, oh, we're running Holehe. There you go. Email was used on these sites and not used on these sites, and we don't know about those. So the tool works. Let's go back over here, copy this out, and go over to our Windows system. Now on Windows system here, I'm going to do the other way to install Holehe. Pip install Holehe. And we're done. Well, almost we're done. We're almost done. And it's running the install. There we go. It installed it. Now, where is it? How do I run it? Well, if I use this setup script or I used pip, then it's probably going to just be something I can type in. So if I type in Holehe, jack@example.com, it should run the program. I know. Some of you are thinking, okay, it works for you, Mike. It's like when you take your car to a repair shop, it's like it was making that noise for 5 weeks and then it comes here and it's not making that noise. Micah, how come you are not getting those errors? The answer is very, very complicated. The idea is that on my systems here, I have simple default installations of things. Those of you that are using systems that maybe other people have built, maybe Trace Labs, maybe somebody else, maybe you're running somebody's installation scripts, those tools install dependencies so that other tools can run. So let's say that you're using an existing virtual machine, maybe Kali Linux, and you want to install Holehe. Well, you type in pip install Holehe, and it goes partway through, and then it says, oh, you have an incompatible library. The library libxml is version 1.2.3 and it needs to be version 1.9. something. You need to fix that. In those cases, it gets really complicated. But you can use something called a Python virtual environment, which is beyond the scope of this talk, to go ahead and create a self-contained virtual environment that you then install that tool into. And when you do that, it kind of ignores all of those libraries that are installed on your system and allows you to install just what you need to run that tool. Python virtual environments are something that are a little bit complicated to use, but once you get the hang of it, it can be really, really helpful. Cool. So in the last 42 minutes, we've gone through installing 2 different command line tools, one in the Linux virtual machine and one in Windows 11. And the Linux virtual machine I'm using, for those of you that came late, is Xubuntu version 2204, long-term support. And we've also done the same type of thing over in Windows 11, running Python version 3.10, I believe. And we installed it via git clone, and then installing the dependencies. We also installed applications using pip. All right, so let's see. How do I manage my configs for each of the aforementioned tools? Bob, that's a little bit beyond the scope of this because depending on the tools, it's all going to be different. Also, I'll give you a little bit behind the scenes here. I don't use many Python tools anymore. Now, when I was doing cybersecurity, I used Python tools a lot and wrote a lot of tools. But now that I'm doing a lot more OSINT, I'm finding that tools that are in my web browser, tools that are extensions and add-ons, are much easier to access than Python tools, dropping down to the command line, launching something, and running it. But because you're my favorite audience right now, let me show you a little secret, something that many people don't know. Here we are back on our Windows system. Now, Whatsmyname.app. Many of you know that I have made this application, Whatsmyname.app, along with Chris Poulter. This app uses the Whatsmyname project, and if we see over here, WebBreacher Whatsmyname, we can open that, and guess what? It pulls up the GitHub page. So this page is just like the ones we saw, right? You scroll down. First thing you do on a GitHub page is scroll down. Here it tells you what it is, tells you other tools that use this, tells us how, oh, there's a standalone Python checker. Look at that. Interesting. Okay, how to contribute and all. Nice. Okay, so there's a standalone Python checker. Let's just do something in the last 10 minutes. Let's run a username here. I'm going to do all excluding porn. I'm going to run the username fuzzy bunny 123. All right. From my web browser, it is now making 413 requests out to different systems. Now, the thing that you might not know about web-based tools is that some of them hide some of the errors that come back just because of how the application's made. Don't get me wrong, Whatsmyname.app is an amazing free tool that is terrific, but it may provide you some false negatives. Check this out. We can go into the console over here and look at some of the errors that came back. So what the console is, this is the web developer tools that come with every single browser, and I just hit the F12 key. You can navigate through the menu. What this is showing the console is all of the JavaScript errors. This tool is run using JavaScript. And what it's telling us is, look, access to XML HTTP request at taskrabbit.com is denied by this CORS. This cross-origin resource sharing policy says you can't grab data from one site with the scripts on this site. It's just not possible. So what we have is your web browser, my web browser, is protecting me against visiting these sites. All right. Well, let's take this exact thing. Let's grab the Whatsmyname app, copy. Let's do the git clone and then put in the Whatsmyname. We'll cd into Whatsmyname. We're going to do the pip install -r requirement. Oh, look, it's standard. Hey, and I've got all the things I need already installed. Cool. So I should be able to run the tools. Now, what are the tools? Well, here you see there's two tools, and we're fixing this. We're combining them into one. There's check online resource presence and web accounts list checker. I'm going to run this one, and it's going to be messy and look ugly, but it's going to complete really quickly. Let's go ahead, look, and you see it's executed, right? Executable. It's got the star and the green, so we should just be able to do /web, and it comes up. I'm going to specify a username of fuzzybunny123. Oh, okay, well, it says bad interpreter. Well, whoever made this script, Micah, did a terrible job. So what this is telling me is that inside of this script, it says user bin Python, and it tries to run that. And there is no user bin Python here. We're using Python 3. So I just changed that to Python 3. How did I know that? 20 years using Python. All right. So what it's doing is it's making a huge number of requests, but in this case, instead of making the request from my web browser, it's making it from Python. and you see all these critical errors, blah, 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 maximum retries exceeded, we can just ignore that stuff for right now. Just let it go. It never happened. And what we'll find, well, okay, while this is going on, the reason for this is that some websites will look at our traffic and go, wait a second, you're coming from Python. That's not normal, and they'll block us. Or they'll block me because I'm using a VPN right now. Just depends on the site. So we're going to wait and wait and wait. And now remember over here on whatsmyname.web when I ran fuzzybunny123, I got 27 results. Let's see what happens over here. Oh, I found 23 results. So here I've got a difference. Why? Well, it might be that 4 of the sites blocked me because I'm using Python script. In some cases, these sites are going to maybe allow a web browser and disallow a Python script. Sometimes they'll allow the Python script but disallow a web browser. And that's why we use multiple tools, or we use the same tool in multiple ways. Because now I can take these found users, look at them compared to these found users, and I can find, which users are in common. I can do that using CyberChef very quickly, but I'm not going to do that. All right, so my point in showing you all of that is that if you want to use Python tools, use Python tools. If you want to use web browser tools, use web browser tools. Just understand that when you're doing OSINT assessments or OSINT investigations, sometimes using a combination of both can be very advantageous to you. All right, cool. Any other questions? I did get some requests in the forum to do specific tools and all, but I only got one request for those things, and I'm a little bit leery about doing them because those tools require a lot more setup and are a little bit non-standard to run. So that is my talk for the day. As I mentioned, I'm Micah Hoffman from the OSINT Curious Project, and I appreciate you being here, sharing some time with me. This has been recorded, and I'll try to put all of those, or as many of those things that I've done here, into the show notes so that it's easy for you to access. As always, everybody, thank you for coming, and please stay OSINT curious.